Quazi here. Hidden within the depths of the Baraba caves of ancient India lies a disturbing prophecy. When humans forget the sacred breath, their power will diminish and darkness will cloud their minds. Look around you. We've become a society of chest breathers, mouth breathers, shallow breathers, but the ancient yogis knew something that we've forgotten. Something so powerful that it was kept secret in mystery schools for thousands of years. The great yogic masters spoke of Svara Yoga, the sacred science of the breath. Through practices like Nadi Shodhana, they understood how the breath flowing through the Ida and Pingala nadis, our subtle energy channels, could unlock extraordinary human potential. These weren't just spiritual claims. The ancient text, Shiva Svarodaya, described with stunning precision how each nostril connects to opposite hemispheres of the brain, something modern science only confirmed centuries later. The most revered yogis, the Siddhas, demonstrated abilities that defied explanation. Through mastery of pranayama and the ancient practice of Khechari Mudra, they accessed what they called Amrita, the nectar of life. Their secret? The perfect balance of breath between the two nostrils. Now, modern science has finally caught up with what these masters knew all along. Hidden within your nasal cavity lies what the yogis call Brahmadvara, the gateway to consciousness itself. But here's the troubling truth. 93% of people today have lost the natural breathing pattern that the ancient Rishi sages possessed. In today's video, I'm going to share a breathing protocol with you that, if implemented correctly, has the potential to change your life forever. Now, this is a breathing method that I got initiated into by my guru back in 2019, 5 years ago, and has completely changed my life since then. So, with that, let's get started. So, the very first thing we have to understand is what our goal with this exercise truly is. So, the goal with this exercise is to synchronize the two hemispheres of our brains, the left and the right. Some may call this the heart and the mind. Some may call this the conscious and the sub or the unconscious. So, the reason why we must, in order to experience a life that is fully expansive, a life where we manifest what we want to manifest and create the outcomes that we would truly like to see rather than unintended outcomes that lead to even more suffering, we have to have a coherence between mind and heart, okay? And what you'll realize is your nostrils during specific times of the day, but more so just in general for some people, one nostril is more active than the other. And what I notice for me is that my right nostril is more open typically than my left nostril, okay? And what this typically means is when your right nostril is more open, the right nostril actually feeds the left brain, okay? So the logical side of you that's more in control, that's more type A, the creative part of me gets stifled. And so sometimes I struggle with creativity and I get very, very ordered. And now I realize why this happens. But then there are certain times during the day when I find that my left nostril opens up more. And this is typically during the early hours of the morning and late hours in the night. So doing creative work during those hours benefits me greatly. But then in the middle of the day, I have this slump around like 1 to 3 p.m. where my right nostril is very, very active. So if you just breathe normally, without manipulating your breath, and you just notice, where is the breath stronger? I can feel that my right nostril, the breath is stronger. Therefore, it tells me that the left side of my brain is getting more activity, more blood flow, etc. And therefore, it's getting more stimulation. And so I have become increasingly left brain. I'm very logical in general, right? So a lot of people have this with the opposite nostril, autistic types, where they struggle having any kind of discipline, but they're very, very good at coming up with things on a whim and also just coming up and are very, very intuitive, right? But when we get to a point in our lives where the breathing from both nostrils are equal, magical things begin to happen. And that's because now we're equally distributing blood flow to the two hemispheres of our brain or our psyche, okay? And the yogis call the breath the kurma nadi. Why they call it the kurma nadi? Because the word kurma translates to tortoise. And a tortoise is an amphibian that lives both on land and water. Okay, so what they believed is the breath is the tool, the string that binds the non-spiritual, the ethereal realm to the physical realm. And so with a mastery of the breath, and they did tons of different, they have, in the Yoga Sutras especially, Patanjali talks about this, in the Upanishads there's a lot of mention of different kinds of breath work and unlocking chakras, but they have different exercises and different breath holds that allow you to experience different realms. And you'll even notice, if you're familiar with the substance DMT, dimethyltryptamine, it causes hallucinations, right? So DMT can be consumed in an exogenous form, externally, or you can internally create it and basically get high off your own supply. And the very first time I was aware of this was when I encountered Sadhguru, and he said, "Oh, I'm high all the time. I love getting high."
These millions of cannabis receptors are waiting for you to produce it. Those who could not produce it, they try to put it from outside and damage the system. Look at me, I'm always blissed out. Look into my eyes and see I'm stoned. Never been on a substance, but always stoned.
But not externally. Because when you take an external substance to create an internal state, what typically happens is there's a price to pay. So with weed, you might experience lower testosterone or a lack of motivation after a long time taking it. It really weighs down on your hormones. There's great studies done on this. And then with caffeine, there's an energetic debt you create, right? Like you get a high now, but then you experience a crash later on. But if you learn to create these states within your own body by just breathing air or learning to control your breathing patterns, then you're internally generating those chemicals. Because we have endocannabinoid receptors. We're very, very capable of producing these chemicals ourselves, but it's just, there's an atrophy. Like we haven't been, first of all, taught how to breathe properly. Second of all, we've been so accustomed to taking the quick solution, the quick pill. But you always have to understand that whenever there's an energetic change happening with an exogenous substance, there's always a price to pay. There's an energetic debt, a loan that needs to be repaid. Okay, so the yogis knew this thousands of years ago, but unfortunately this knowledge has gotten lost. And some of these ancient tribes, if you visit them, they still know this. They still live by it because they haven't been exposed to modern pharmaceuticals and this modern medicine, because they have their own internal pharmacy and they've always cultivated that, generation after generation, and they've preserved that knowledge. Okay, so the other thing you have to understand is when we have an erratic breath, we actually have an erratic life. So when you become anxious, you'll notice your breathing will become a certain way. When you become very, very angry, then you'll notice your breathing will become another way. The breath is directly connected to the mind. So when you slow down your breath, you'll also notice that the erraticness in your thinking slows down. And when the erraticness in your thinking slows down, the erraticness in your external world also disappears. And I started to notice this when I started to get off all kinds of stimulants, or at least lower it. Recently, a week ago, I just got off drinking caffeine, smoking cigars, at least cut it down, because I noticed that I was getting very hooked to caffeine and I was becoming very ADD, like I was rushing to go from one thing to the other. And as soon as I quit it, the first 2 to 3 days were really, really hard. But then after that, I just feel like I just woke up. Every single moment feels like I literally just woke up. Like I have the same energy levels that I had as soon as I woke up and right before I go to bed. And as soon as I lay horizontally and my head hits the pillow, I fall asleep with no problem. And, I've been sharing I wear this ring to track my sleep. And I noticed that my heart rate, I genetically have a low heart rate, but then my heart rate dropped from like 40, 41, my lowest heart rate, to 36, right? And because I'm generally an anxious person, I've noticed that the feelings of anxiety throughout the day have disappeared. And what typically happens is, I notice this, whenever there is feelings of anxiousness, it arises, it gets blocked in the heart. And that's where I feel the feeling of anxiety the strongest. But as soon as I hopped off caffeine or any kind of external stimulants, what I notice is when the feeling of anxiety arises, or the trigger of anxiety, I get something that I'm thinking about in the past that I used to be anxious about that would trigger that feeling within me. Now it just passes through the heart and it's allowed to rise. The energy is not stagnant anymore. So that's just something I've noticed, but I've also started to go deeper into this breath exercise that I'm going to share with you, the Nadi Shuddhi, or Nadi Shodhana. The essential idea, and there's a great book on this, it's called Breath. I can't remember the name of the author, but in it, he talks about the forgotten science, the forgotten art of breathing. And many ancient texts actually quoted this, that when you breathe through the mouth, it actually causes a lot more problems in your life. You should never breathe through the mouth. And what's surprising to me is even when you exercise, you should try your best to breathe through the nose, because the nose is not only a filtering mechanism for pathogens and the atmosphere, but the nose also has a lining it's kind of like a tissue that allows for the absorption of the oxygen from the atmosphere and the transfer of oxygen into the bloodstream better, but also the production of carbon dioxide, which also turns out to be a very important chemical within the body, where we have been traditionally taught that carbon dioxide is apparently really bad for you, should get rid of it. But when you slow your breathing down, not only do the thoughts in your mind slow down, but also your physiology takes on a different kind of rhythm. So getting back to erratic breathing, the goal with this exercise is first and foremost to synchronize the two hemispheres of the brain, heart and mind coherence, and second of all, to get us to a reduced breathing state, so we don't need to take as many breaths. And every single ancient culture, there's a study that was done in that book, they showed that when you can inhale at a rate of 5.5 seconds and exhale at a rate of 5.5 seconds, and you take 5.5 breaths per minute, you can get your breathing down to around 6 breaths per minute. Your life will completely change. You're going to get connected to an intuition that you've never had access to. And I started to notice this myself. I started getting a lot more intuitive insights when I practiced this method to slow down my breathing. Okay? You also produce this chemical within the body, I'm not sure what the name of the chemical is, when you can get yourself into a state of intermittent hypoxia, meaning your blood oxygen drops. Okay? And when that happens, yes, you start hallucinating, but it's also very efficient for the body because your lungs can begin to use the little amount of oxygen and become very, very efficient in transferring it. The problem arises when we mouth breathe, because not only is our jaws getting messed up, because you'll notice a lot of people who mouth breathe, unfortunately they have very sunken in jaws and an underdeveloped jaw. And this is why I'm being very, very careful with my son, because he sucks on a pacifier, and that also prevents nose breathing and it encourages mouth breathing. So we have to be very, very careful, my wife and I. So if you have children, 100% be aware of that. But to top it all off, when you breathe through the mouth, your entire physiology gets out of whack. And that's because you gasp too much, you take too much air, and your body becomes very, very inefficient at using oxygen and converting it to ATP or converting it to energy. So, erratic breathing, erratic life. The solution to this is, first of all, nose breathing, diaphragmatic deep breathing, but also learning to slow your breath down. And what will happen is when you can synchronize the two parts of you, there will be a harmony between the conscious and subconscious, or subconscious and unconscious, okay? So what I mean by that is any kind of manifestation technique that you do. If you think about affirmations, visualizations, hypnosis, what are we trying to do? The fundamental thing we're trying to do is bring our unconscious mind on board, because it's not on board. We consciously want something, but for some reason, unconsciously, we keep sabotaging ourselves. Why? This is why. It's because our psyche, the conscious part of ourselves, it has no access to this unconscious part of ourselves, okay? It's not plastic enough. It can't change those patterns. And so we become stubborn, we keep attracting the same kind of patterns in our lives. If you notice that you've been attracting one kind of pattern for years and years in your life, you keep attracting the same kind of relationships, even though you consciously know you would like to attract another kind of relationship, or you keep staying stuck at the same revenue level, income level in your business, in your career, in your trading, you just can't seem to break through, the chances, it's a high likelihood that this is why. It's because you don't have any kind of influence over your unconscious. Your unconscious mind won't listen to you. This is the way to get it to listen. So the work that we've done with our clients, and the reason why we get such amazing client results, is because we have a method whereby we help them shift their identity at the core, the root unconscious level. And when an identity shift happens, when you shift at the unconscious level, you don't need to worry about doing a technique or consciously trying to fight. Your heart and mind are on board. Okay, you have a synchrony between the left and right hemispheres of your brain, or your conscious and subconscious. Your unconscious mind listens to you. And Carl Jung said this himself: until you make the unconscious conscious, it will run your life and you will call it fate. Okay? So the key thing I want you to take away from this is our goal in life is to get to a point where there is harmony in every single part of ourselves. Okay, there's a harmony in the conscious part, the unconscious part, the ego, the shadow, the inner child, the inner parent. There's the masculine, the feminine parts of ourselves. There is an equal harmony between each and every single part of these. Otherwise, if there isn't, you will keep attracting situations in your life that will sabotage you, that will try to wake you up to bring harmony to these parts. And I believe this exercise that I've recently started to redo again over the last week or so, it has completely changed everything for me. On top of cutting down on caffeine, quitting nicotine or any kind of substance that irritates your nervous system. It kind of stimulates you. Okay, and relying on your own internal supply. So this exercise I was taught back in 2019 by my guru, and I was initiated into it, and it's basically an alternating breathing method, Nadi Shuddhi. For those of you who do yoga, you probably are aware of this. But what it does is by the end of it, you'll notice, and it might not be immediate, when you begin, you'll find that when you breathe through one nostril, the breath is more voluminous, you can breathe more, and the other one is a little more clogged. I want you to pay close attention to which one is more clogged and which one is more open, because that's going to be important. And by the end of it, you're going to notice, so typically it happens either by the end of it or once you do it in the morning, throughout the day, it starts to open up more. Okay? So what I would like to do is outline the 5 steps of this exercise, and I want you to make a commitment that you're going to do this at least for the next 40 days, first thing in the morning. This takes you 5 minutes to do, so there is no reason you can't commit 5 minutes to doing this. And I want you to create an accountability journal in the comments section, outlining your experience and what happened in your life and how you felt throughout the day. So at the end of the day, I want you to come in, give yourself a rating out of 10, okay? How did I feel out of 10? And then 3 wins that you had and 1 thing that you think you could have improved on. So let's get to the 5 steps right now. Before I get to the 5 steps, I wanted to announce that you can access our exclusive email list. All you need to do is go to realitycreator.com/list. I can share stuff in our exclusive email list that I can't really share on the channel because of YouTube's platform limitations. As you know, YouTube is a social media platform that's owned by Google, and as such, it's rented property, right? The stuff I'm putting out, I've rented from Google. If it goes down, then the only thing I own is the email list. So everything I can genuinely, authentically share is with customers or people who are subscribed to our email list. So I would highly recommend you join the email list, and upon joining, you're going to get a bonus, the Identity Shifting Bootcamp. People who've used the Identity Shifting Bootcamp have literally reported getting results just from, watching that 5 video series. That's only available for members who have joined the list. So with that, let's get to the 5 steps of Nadi Shuddhi. So what I'm going to do first is I will outline the steps for you. And once I've outlined the steps, we're going to do it for 5 minutes together. Okay, I skipped my morning practice just so we can do this together. So the first step is you want to sit comfortably. You may sit on the ground. I recommend on the ground without a backrest, just with your spine erect. And for 5 minutes, you should be able to sit relatively straight, comfortably erect. Sit, spine erect. Step 2, what you want to do is you want to set a timer for 5 minutes. This is simply a 5-minute exercise. It's better if you set a timer. Step 3, what you want to do is put your left hand down on your lap and right hand up towards your nose. You'll be using your thumb and pinky finger for this exercise, kind of like this. So you'll begin with an inhalation, or actually an exhalation, so I just remembered. See, it's become so subconscious, this exercise for me, I don't even think about it. So you're going to close up your right nostril with your thumb and exhale first through your left nostril. That will mark 1 cycle, the beginning of the cycle, okay? And then inhale through your left nostril and then exhale. Close the left nostril with your pinky. And so what you want to do is there are these insertions right here. It's not here, because then air will escape. You want to do it right at the base where you can fully seal up the nostril. And with the right hand pinky, you want to close up the left nostril and breathe out through your right nostril and then inhale. And then do it again and then exhale through the left nostril. That's 1 cycle. Left nostril exhale, left nostril inhale, right nostril exhale, right nostril inhale, left nostril exhale. 1 cycle. Make sense? I know it's a little bit complicated, but once we do it together, it will make sense. So, timer for 5 minutes. Right hand pinky and thumb. I would literally write the whole thing that I just said to you over here, but I can't. But this is the best way I can summarize this. So next up, okay. So begin exhale through left nostril. This marks the beginning. Then alternate. If you can't see this, I'll get my editor to like properly put everything up for you. So that's gonna be fine. And finally, this is an important point to remember. You want to breathe slowly. So imagine if there were a feather under your nose, or if there were a candle flame under your nose, it shouldn't flicker. The feather shouldn't move. You want to breathe that slowly and that deliberately. And you want to focus on the breath. If your mind wanders, bring it back to the breath. You can be thinking about what to eat for lunch, what to eat for breakfast, or how many cups of coffee to drink today. Bring it back to the breath. Bring your thoughts back to the breath. Focus on breath. So you want to do this exercise consciously. Breathe slow. So typically, for me, and this is me, it takes me 31 cycles to get it done within 5 to 6 minutes. Okay? You may count cycles if you want. It's much easier to do it with a timer. But the caveat is, as soon as the timer goes off, don't just stop the exercise. Get to the next left nostril exhale. You want to complete the cycle. We want harmony, right? We're looking for synchronization between the hemispheres. If you stop it right in the middle, the exercise is going to be rendered moot. So you want to make sure you complete a cycle when you exit. So that is the crucial part. So now let's get right to the meditation. So now you know the steps. I'm going to do a quick recap of it. All I'm doing is sitting comfortably, spine erect. You can be on a backrest. So if your backrest is relatively upright, that's okay. And what you want to do is, before you enter the exercise, make a clear intention of what you'd like to achieve, what you'd like to see for your life. Okay, so take a moment to make an intention. And then what you want to do is place this hand, your left hand, like this, like a bowl on your lap. I'm sorry, I forgot to outline this because, like I said, this method is, it's completely subconscious to me right now. So put it in a bowl, kind of like a bowl shape, like you're receiving something, just in the middle of your lap, okay? Middle of my lap. So like right here, okay? And the other one up here, the right hand up here, and only the thumb and the pinky finger are being used. And what I'm going to do is set a timer now for 5 minutes, and we're going to do it together. So remember, at first, I begin with right hand, thumb blocking right nostril, exhale. Then inhale, then block the left nostril with my right hand pinky, and then exhale through the right nostril, then inhale with the right nostril, and then exhale with the left nostril. Cool. So let's get started. Begin with me now. Slowly open your eyes. So you'll notice that my alarm went off, but I didn't immediately come out of it. That's because I was on my right nostril. I need to finish the cycle before I exit due to the synchronization issue. So make sure you do that. The other thing I would recommend is when you inhale, do it for a count of 6. When you exhale, do it for a count of 6. And then continue every inhalation and exhalation for a count of 6. See, yoga is a very, very intricately designed art. And as such, it needs to be handled with care. I don't share a lot of yogic methods because it's very, very hard to transmit, and a lot of it requires initiation. Therefore, this is a simple exercise, Nadi Shuddhi. Nadi Shuddhi literally translates to purification of the Kurma Nadi. Nadi is a river, a channel, okay? So the breath is a channel, and this is the purification of that channel of breath. So what you'll notice is throughout the day now, especially for those of you who've been heavy breathers, you hyperventilate and you notice a lot of anxiety, you'll notice this sense of ease and calm. When I exit this exercise, I kind of feel like a child that's been reborn, like newly born, you know, like I feel so fresh. It purifies your brain. So I'm excited for you to experiment with this for the next 40 days. Make sure you create your accountability journal on the comments, and what you're going to be doing is just commenting on it. And every single day at the end of the day, how the day went, etc. You may even do it after the exercise and how you felt, but I highly recommend you do it at the end of the day, because then we'll know how your life has continually improved as you've been doing this exercise. So what I recommend now is clicking right here to access the identity shifting movie that I made for you. Every single one of our clients has at some point gone through this, and that's what made them successful. In it, I outline the deepest, most powerful paradigm of reality, the being paradigm. Most people focus on having, doing. The most powerful individuals are focused on who they're becoming, because life is in a constant process of being and becoming. So click right here to access that. It has a complete workbook right in there for you, and it also outlines one of the deeper principles of reality known as the mirror principle. So you can either click right here or in the description, or you can go to realitycreator.com/movie, and I'm really excited for you to go through it. So I'll see you in the movie right now. Thanks.